South Africa now risks a downgrade of its credit rating. A mining analyst at the ratings agency Moody says further outbreaks of violence could damage the export competitiveness of the country, leading to a potential downgrade.
Foreign investors that I speak to have the impression that the South African government has lost control of labour relations in the country. Now, if you think that labour issues are the fourth most problematic factor for doing business in South Africa, you can tell that foreign investment in South Africa is being curtailed.
Let's expand this conversation now. CCTV Sumitra Naidu is live in Johannesburg. Melanie Ralph is in London. They're joining us live on the line. Sumitra, let's start with you. Just before we started the programme, Amplats management were meeting with the workers. What's the latest on that story?
Well, Rama, the last we heard was that Amcu had agreed not to go on strike this evening. They were planning to have some strike action this evening. So they've decided to hold on and wait for more news coming through from management in terms of what they're going to do with that retrenchments, the 6,000 workers. So it seems that they've agreed to go back to the negotiating table, but we're not too sure from the Amplats side whether they've agreed to make any changes. As far as we know, those 6,000 retrenchments are still going to go ahead. But for tonight, the strike has been put on hold.
Indeed.
Rama?
Let's look at the long term, Melanie. We've seen the rand taking a beating, same story the company shares. But what effect in the long run do these work stoppages have on the external assessment of South Africa's risk?
Well, if we're talking about foreign investment here, it's not expected to see investors running for the hills. South Africa and sub-Sahara Africa is the investment of choice these days as the global economy is struggling under pressure and investment returns are being squeezed. Investors are hunting for the next big bet, and Africa's it. Those who invest in Africa, and especially the mining sector, expect to roll with the punches. Yes, we're seeing pressure on the share prices and the rand, but foreign investors, they're in this for the long-term play. Of course, investors hope these issues will come to a conclusion and the dust will start to settle again. In the long term, to really boost investor sentiment, markets will hope that the real underlying issues are tackled to stop incidents like this flaring up at all.
Speaking of things flaring up, Sumitra, the fact is that AMT has been criticised before for being, quote-unquote, in bed with the unions. Isn't the latest series of events we're seeing here just proof that it's completely lost control of this particular segment of the labour market in South Africa?
Oh yes, Rama, that is a widespread view here in South Africa. Very concerning that, the fact that these strike actions and almost a repeat of the events that we saw last year happening this early in the year. These negotiations started so much earlier and we're seeing strike action there already. So a lot of concern and a lot of analysts are asking, where is government in all of this? When are they going to actually step in and make some firm decisions as to what needs to happen going forward? So there is that concern. Earlier today, we heard Cabinet making an announcement, actually calling on the rival unions to please remain calm and to sort out this in an amicable way to avoid any further disruptions, to avoid any violence going forward. So, there is that, you get that sense that everyone's sitting on tenterhooks worried that this may turn out to be something that happened, something that we saw last year, which was rather devastating. Unless government actually gets in there and makes some firm decisions, we may see a repeat of those events.
Indeed. Melanie, let's move on to the currency side of things. The rand, according to some, is overvalued, despite having fallen by over 10% against the American dollar this year. If mining companies do give in to the wage demands the workers are making, how far can we see the rand fall?
Well, that's the question on markets' minds. How low can it go? And some traders say there's not much to support the South African rand. There's been huge inflows to emerging markets since the China easing, but the rand isn't getting a boost. And some are pointing to investors wanting to hedge effect risks. But there's also the domestic backdrop dragging on the rand. Technically, if the rand breaks the 9.55 level, then some analysts say we could see it reach the 10 handle pretty quickly. And some are even pointing to 10.50 being the next key resistance level. The situation is certainly conducive to a dollar buying story right now.
Indeed. Final question to you, Sumitra. Do investors in South Africa and analysts agree that the rand is overvalued?
Well, you know, there's mixed views on that one, but this debate over the rand being overvalued or undervalued has been going on for many, many years. It's very important to point out that South Africa over the past 20 years has never intervened in the currency movement. Of course, this debate continues, and there's obviously two sides to it. You know, a weaker rand is good for exporters. It may be needed right now because it would address some of the unemployment issues if we get that export market going. But on the other side, you know, a stronger rand will help consumers bring down inflation. We are seeing a situation where we've got a rising inflation. So it's a really tough one, but we have seen the Reserve Bank stay out of it. It's always maintained that it would not intervene in the currency's movements. It will allow it to be dictated by international markets.
Indeed. We'll absolutely be there for the time being. Thank you very much. CCTV Sumitra Naidullah in Johannesburg and Melanie Ralph in London talking about the latest developments in South Africa. We'll certainly be keeping tabs on that right here on CCTV Africa.